Join the Wisconsin Chamber Orchestra for Regeneration with Canopy Dance. Explore music and movement as Canopy Dance Company joins the orchestra on stage. The evening will feature 3 world premieres, 2 local composers, and a piece by a Grammy-nominated composer. Join the WCO on Friday, February 27th at 7:30 p.m. Tickets are available at wcoconcerts.org/regeneration. Clear your calendar for March 20th and get ready to party for a purpose. Toto's Gala returns to Monona Terrace for a one-night fundraising celebration supporting Dane County Humane Society and the animals who count on them. Enjoy incredible food, flowing drinks, inspiring stories, and yes, adorable animals. Grab your friends, dress to impress, and be part of a night where fun and giving go hand in hand, coming together for good. Tickets are on sale now, and RSVPs close March 6th. Get your tickets today at giveshelter.org/Toto. This is CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Today, Madison is a predominantly white city in a predominantly white state, which means it can be hard for people of color to find and cultivate safe spaces of their own. But one group of UW-Madison researchers is changing that. The Soulfolk Collective is an academic lab focused on mapping the experiences of Black Madisonians. And as of this month, their 2025 oral history collection is officially live with the Wisconsin Historical Society. To mark this milestone, we're bringing back my conversation from last year with the leaders of the lab. Hope you enjoy. Joining me to talk about this work is Dr. Jessica Lee Stovall, Assistant Professor in the Department of African American Studies.
Hello, it's so wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, it is a treasure to have you. And Angela Fitzgerald Ward, a PhD candidate at UW-Madison and creator, producer, and host of Why Race Matters on PBS Wisconsin.
Hi, Bianca. How are you doing today?
Good. I just feel so much Black joy being here with both of you. I am so incredibly excited for this conversation and for folks to hear about what you're doing if they don't already know. Dr. Stovall, you lead the Soulfolk Collective, which launched this spring. It is the first research lab to be housed in UW-Madison's Department of African American Studies. What is Soulfolk's mission and what need is it filling?
Thank you so much for that question. So I went to UW-Madison 20 years ago. I started in 2002. And so I know firsthand some of the challenges of being a Black student at an institution like UW-Madison. And then I went on a long meandering journey where I taught high school English for 11 years and then dedicated my PhD to race and education to think about how we can design a world that is Black affirming and allows Black students to bring their full human selves into the classroom. And I was so overjoyed to get a job at UW-Madison, but there was some trepidation, again, knowing my own personal experiences. As I was coming back, the national news was covering that horrible Snapchat incident, and I was thinking about how do I do research on Black joy, Black thriving, how Black people make a way out of no way when I'm coming back to a state that is notorious for its challenges in racial inequities. And so I knew that if I were going to be able to make a home here and make a career where I can do the type of research that I'd like to do, I knew I had to create my own intellectual academic space. And so the Soulfolk was born, and it really was co-constructed amongst 11 amazing undergraduate and graduate researchers down to the name. We have a series of commitments that we co-wrote together, and we really designed a space where we could all bring the dynamic complexity of who we are into the space and do research that is meaningful both to us as Black people, but also to the Black community and the community at large. So that's kind of how it came to be. It's a way for us to do the research that's really inspiring and energizing to us, but also really needed in this particular political climate.
Oh, so needed. And I hate to even have to give this context, but The video that went viral was a really ugly video capturing a white UW student talking about her Black boyfriend, using blatantly racist slurs and talking about slavery. And I won't go too much further into it, but it really sparked conversations about things that we know were happening in and around UW-Madison's campus and culture. Plus, knowing that people are there looking for community and don't want that to be the case. So I wish Soulful Collective was there when I was at UW-Madison, honestly. Angela, I want to bring you into the conversation. You're also a part of this collective. From your point of view as a doctoral student at UW, what's the community like?
So within the collective, I think it is refreshing because when you think about research and lab spaces within higher education at the graduate level, I mean, there's maybe some ideas that come to mind and some experiences that are commonplace that overall help with your professional development and training as a researcher and someone in the academy. That still applies within SoCo in terms of the rigor and the prep and how is Dr. Stovall being intentional of helping all of us launch into whatever career paths we want to pursue. But there's a intentionality about the ways of working that I find unique because this collective, I think a common thread with all of us is that we started off, majority of us, within a Black qualitative methods class. And before that class, I didn't know that was a thing. I knew that I personally wanted to pursue methodology in a way that centered my philosophy and the ways in which I wanted to work with Black people as a Black person, but I'd never seen that taught. So that attracted me to the class. And within the class, the collective came together and I'm like, wow, they're really being specific about not just doing work with Black people as Black people, but unpacking the harm that institutions, especially research institutions, have done to our community and how in some ways we could be seen as complicit because we are a part of the institution. So how do we acknowledge that, but then move forward in a way that addresses the harm and allows for things to feel more collaborative and impactful? So I appreciate that because again, I've been in research spaces that's like, yeah, that's nice, but this feels like it's meant to do more than just be nice.
So like a holistic hug. Can I just fill it in?
Absolutely. It's beyond just, because I mean, yes, we're here, we're big nerds, we're about being in school and learning all the things, but it definitely feels like it's about community.
And has it changed the way that you walk around campus and UW? Like, how has it changed your experience? You're giving me like, ah.
Well, I'd say that's hard for me because I guess I'm a non-traditional student. I don't spend maybe as much time on campus as maybe some of my counterparts. But I think it does mean something when the work that is being done by the collective is recognized both by our colleagues at UW, but also within the community. Because it's great that our colleagues at the institution that we work within recognize our work, but that also is kind of typical, right, for academics to talk to each other in this whole ivory tower concept. But when people in the community that have no connection to UW, who might honestly actually side-eye UW, respect what we do, that means a little bit more. So it gives me a sense of pride to be connected to something that does have that respect and acknowledgement.
I'm feeling the pride. Well, Dr. Stovall, I'm excited to bring this into the conversation. One of the big projects is your multifaceted oral history project centering Black Madisonians and how we experience the city. Can you explain the scope of the Black Madison Archive project?
So at its core, it's a Black geographies project, which is understanding how Black people take up and navigate space. Part of this work is in partnership with the upcoming Center for Black Excellence and Culture. And so we're trying to just figure out, where does Black culture and Black excellence currently reside in the Madison area? And so we're doing this through two different types of interviews. Folks can sit down and do a traditional interview where we sit face to face with the recorder and ask them about their experiences, what brought them to Madison, how's their experiences being here, how would they describe what it's like being Black to a Black friend who's never been to Madison before, and also their hopes and dreams for the upcoming center. In the spirit of the legacy of the Negro Motorist Green Book, we're also asking them to bring to these interviews photographs of places that are Black affirming to them, that elicit positive informations like joy or love. And we have them describe them in detail about what these spaces mean to them. In a lot of ways, just kind of reclaiming and reimagining the spaces across Madison to be spaces where Black people can thrive and be, even though there's so few of us.
A lot of people know, but I think just as many might not be familiar with the Negro Motorist Green Book. So for folks who don't know, that was a guidebook, right, for Black travelers that was published annually for 30 years, starting in 1936 by Victor Hugo Green.
Yeah, so that idea of sharing those spaces has been really powerful. And so you can actually go to our website and click on a map of Madison and hear these different clips of oral histories of the places that have meaning to Black Madison residents. So it really is interactive. You can listen to the oral history clips, you can look at the photographs, and, just kind of think about how Black people are navigating space and the way that they're reclaiming space in a lot of ways. We're thinking a lot about methodology that allows us to do more storytelling and really embody space. We're also doing these go-along interviews where we attach dash cams to folks' cars, and they actually drive us around the city of Madison, sharing the stories of the places. We stop and look. And in one go-along interview, we actually got out of the car because he had people he wanted to introduce to me, and just kind of be able to actually share space with Black Madison residents and hear the stories in the places that have meaning to them. And so that's been kind of another amazing methodology. And you'll be able to hear the full stories. We are going to donate it to the Wisconsin Historical Society, which doesn't have many oral history collections. And so it'll go live in Black History Month 2026, and you'll be able to listen to the experiences of Black Madison residents. And I'm very excited about that opportunity as well.
This is so exciting and so energizing to hear. We started out the conversation hearing a little bit about how Wisconsin is a tough place, if not the hardest state to be Black, right? And you having had experiences being at UW and already recognizing, oh, I am uncomfortable possibly coming back here as a Black woman and carrying that. I want to bring that back into the conversation to give context to the Green Book. That guide offered advice about locations that were friendly and safe in a time where car travel was booming, but there's so much blatant racism around, and there were sundown towns where Black people could not be out after, the sun goes down. And so hearing this present day version of making this happen for people who, maybe aren't facing the same challenges, but are facing challenges is so heartening. Angela, I understand that you did a lot of the interviews with young people who shared their stories. Can you talk about what that was like and what were you hoping to glean from the young people?
It was great. I honestly had a lot of fun with the young people that I spoke to. I believe I talked to 14 people this summer, the majority of which were under 18. And there were some consistent themes that came up in terms of them having some different experiences in the city of Madison. Some were born and raised here, some moved here. There was a theme of safety for those that moved here in terms of their parents' decision to move here because Madison felt physically safer than a Milwaukee or Chicago where they may have been born. But even though they didn't say it, at times there was this theme of how physical safety somehow contradicted this idea of psychological safety. So while I might be in a space that physically I'm not worried about gun violence, for example, in the same way, but I do feel surveilled differently. I do feel like I'm watched or I feel different. But just this feeling of like, yeah, I feel othered. And that's unfortunate to me to hear because it does bring about concern in terms of what the lived experience is like for people who are born and raised in a city like Madison who identify as Black, who don't see themselves reflected back at them and who do feel that at a certain point. There are two young ladies that I spoke to who are in high school now, but they literally said the same thing, that they turned Black in middle school, that through elementary school, they felt more aligned with their white peers and there wasn't this really like concept of race or difference until middle school. And then they became, I guess, more acculturated in terms of their Black identity. And that's when it kind of switched that like, I'm different, and how that's continued to compound over the years. So it just made me curious about what are the long-term effects of being here at a young age, remaining here, and what does that mean for your sense of identity? And again, how you feel safe in a setting that looks beautiful, the lakes, all the things, but where you feel like you may have eyes differently on you because you look different.
I have to give that some space. I cannot relate to that anymore as somebody who moved up from near Chicago. My parents are Chicagoans, to Wisconsin at a young age. And it was because of gun violence that was happening right outside of where we were living, and it was a move for safety. But what are you trading for physical safety when you're then having psychological stress from being different? All of a sudden, you don't fit in for no reason whatsoever. Madison, meet your new secret weapon, TaskRabbit. TaskRabbit officially launched in our city last June, and Madisonians are already using TaskRabbit services to make their lives easier. And I know that's true because I have used TaskRabbit on numerous occasions, particularly for moving and setting up my place. From furniture assembly to painting, they've got a tasker for that. Simply download the app, describe your needed task, and browse profiles of skilled neighbors who can help you today. And you know what else is a huge plus? Their transparent pricing. You'll see the hourly rate upfront, which includes the tasker's rate and the service fee, so there are no surprises at checkout. And you can decide what works for you and what you're willing to pay. So what are you waiting for? Find your first tasker today at TaskRabbit.com or on the app. Angela, do you have any favorite stories from the interviews that you did?
Another story that stood out to me was actually a parent of some youth that I spoke to because, of course, when you're recruiting under 18, you have to get parental permission as well as youth assent. So I'm doing like the song and dance with the parents and then with the parent and the kid and then, to get everything set up. So in the process of introducing the study, she was like, "Oh, I'd love to talk to you too." And I'm like, "Great, I can talk to you as well." So we met up. We had a great chat. We talked it was like almost 2 hours that we were at an area coffee shop just talking. This was my first time meeting this woman and we just like connected. I think we were like the same age and just there were a lot of kind of similarities between us. And she really, to me, harped on the physical versus psychological safety piece because she had mentioned moving her family from Chicago because of the perception that she had of Madison being quiet, being safe, the absence of gun violence, that sort of thing. But then she also uplifted challenges she had with employers, challenges accessing housing. And at the time that we spoke, she was at that time unhoused because of discrimination she was experiencing from area landlords. And of course, thinking that I talked to youth, that theme didn't arise because I'm assuming that even if kids are experiencing housing insecurity, they're not going to talk about it in the same way. So I'm glad that it came up because I have definitely heard and seen that is an issue in Madison, the lack of available affordable housing, and not just the lack of it, but who can then access that housing. So to hear that directly from someone who was like currently experiencing that, and that being a driver behind why she was actively looking to leave Madison, was unfortunate because now we're talking about a retention issue. Like, yes, we can get Black people here, but how easily can we keep Black people here because of the compounded issues they may experience that might look different based on, socioeconomic status. So I appreciated her time and her comfortability just kind of laying it all out for me. And it was just a great conversation. So that stood out as well.
It's echoing for me a conversation that I had with Dr. Alex G., who's the founder of the Center for Black Excellence in Culture. Just like, how do we keep Black people here? How do we keep Black people here? And Dr. Stovall, you were talking about how this is partially an effort to be connected with the Center for Black Excellence. Do you have any favorite stories from this project that you've heard so far?
2 stories that really stick out to me that have particularly touched my heart, although they all have. One is talking with Awa Siwa, who is the owner of the restaurant Las Delicias de Awa, which is right in my neighborhood on the Near East Side of Madison. And we sat in her restaurant before opening, and she just told me the story about when she came to the United States and all of the ways that she has genuinely had to fight to be able to have the life and everything that she's imagined. And the amount of care and love that she puts into her food.
This is like my home. I made this, like every detail. The artist that came to do this, all of the artwork, he came from my country to do it. He stayed with me in my home. I brought him over here from Ivory Coast to here. And he did all of this. And I was here every day while it was being done. We did a build out. The place didn't look like this before. We broke those walls. We did everything because I wanted this to like carry the warmth that I have, and then just show that this is what it is. Like, how inviting can I make this place?
And the second one is very near and dear to my heart as a former teacher, is Mrs. Geraldine Bernard, who was the first Black teacher in the Madison Metropolitan School District.
When I came to Madison, I didn't come with a chip on my shoulder because I knew what the situation was. I knew there were no Black folks in the system, not even the cook or the janitor. So I was ready to accept that. I said, you know what? Somebody needs to do this. Why me? Why not me? You know. So I have always had a smile, even though I wanted to call him a bad name. But it was quite interesting, that situation. And just let me back up a minute. Usually when you go for an interview, you got maybe one person, you know you got the head honcho, and you may have a second person with that person. But I never knew before that. I met in the conference room, and all of the chairs were taken except one. This conference room had 12 seats.
Oh, wow.
They all were filled except one is where my place was. Have you ever heard of that before? But I wasn't surprised. I knew it was going to be different. Wow, we were there till 11:30. We took a lunch break.
In the interview,
We
with
took
11
a,
other people interviewing you.
everybody had to do their say. And we had people like, we had an elementary principal, a high school principal, the president of the board. We had an elementary teacher. We had a high school teacher. We had a student. We had a city officer, and we had, anyway, community people, which was okay. I didn't mind that, but I said it was different, you know. And we took off at 11:30 for lunch break, and I had to return for 1 o'clock. And I went back for 2-3 more hours, right?
Oh, my goodness.
Anyway, it was an interesting interview. Both of the superintendents were there. Doug Ritchie and Don Haitham was the superintendent, and those were the other two people. Yes. And about 2:30, Doug Ritchie said, "Tell us why we should hire you." I said, okay. I said, but would you permit me to ask a question? Not for an answer, but for your thought? He said, go right ahead. So my question was, have you ever thought about what will happen to your children when they grow up and go out into the work world and they see people that look like me? What you think gonna happen with them? How are they gonna react to that? Don't answer me. Just think about it. Then I went on to tell them why I think they should hire me.
I'm also kind of feeling like I want to share my story.
You should.
I do want to circle back to there being a questionnaire around the Center of Black Excellence and Culture about what it should be and what it can be. Dr. Stovall, why is that a crucial part of this project?
So it is such an amazing opportunity to have a beautiful Black architect design space that is for, by, and of Black people. And I, at least, have not heard of something ever being done on this scale, especially in a predominantly white city like Madison, a mid-sized city. And so there's so much opportunity for imagining how we can co-construct that space to be a space for everybody. And people have a lot of opinions of what they would like this space to be. I would say it's pretty evenly mixed as far as Black residents that would really love for it to be a place of innovation where they can go to work, rub shoulders with other Black residents that are doing amazing things in the community and feel inspired and kind of focusing on their labor and efforts and creativity. And then the other half is like, I want a place to just be. without the stresses of the white gaze, without the brutalities that anti-Blackness can bring in my professional life. I want a place where I can just go and have leisure and hang out with my friends and connect with folks and not have to worry about performing a certain way of being. And so it'll be really interesting to think about, how does the center really kind of take these opposing viewpoints and make a space where people want to go and both innovate and create, but also just relax and connect and take a breath? So it is a big challenge for Dr. G and the team. I'm really excited to see how they co-construct the space. And I'm really hopeful that the findings that we have, we have some preliminary findings you can see on our website. But we hope that they take those findings and really think about how they can help curate a space for Black folks in Madison.
I have literally taken 3 soulful breaths as you were describing that. I simply cannot wait. And it's breathing for Black people is political.
I would agree.
Taking that space. And, looking ahead, Dr. Stovall, what's next for Soul Folk when this great project gets wrapped?
Well, so we do want to look at change over time. So any folks that participated in this first round of interviews, we'll contact them in 2 to 3 years after the center is opened to see if there's opinions about living in Madison has changed and how the center might be a part of their different attitudes or similar attitudes towards Madison, and whether or not the center has really met the vision and the dream and hope for Black residents. But we also, kind of getting back to my roots as an educator, is we are hoping to launch the Soul Folk Saturday School in spring of 2027, which is really just an absolute dream of mine to do a freedom school in the spirit of the 1960s and 70s. We're really thinking about, how do we make sure we have Black history, that we have literacy in the form of making sure that folks are able to stand up for their rights and their citizenship rights, and also that we focus on wellness and connection and social action by really pouring into our young people. So it's my dream school. Students will have their own dedicated therapist, an academic coach that goes to their home, UW-Madison undergraduate tutors, and they'll be paid for their time so that they don't have to worry about choosing between a job or doing school on a Saturday. And so I'm just really excited to launch that. So once we close this, we are all busy writing our findings for different scholarly articles and closing this study. As we said, we'll close it formally on November 1st. And then gearing up for a community effort to build this amazing Saturday school that will be housed at the Center for Black Excellence in Culture.
Oh my God. That is so, let the dream ring and let it be manifest and let this happen. That is such an exciting dream that I can't wait for that to come to fruition. That's very exciting. I don't know, Angela, if you have any thoughts about the Soul Folk Saturday School, because I saw you getting really excited as well.
Well, no, I am excited. And I don't think I ever told you this, Dr. Stovall, but years ago, one of my first internships as an undergraduate was working at a freedom school, a Children's Defense Fund freedom school. So that was my introduction, the Ella Baker trainings, going to Haley's Farm, all of that. So to bring that spirit and energy here will be amazing. So I am so looking forward to see all of that happening.
I just wanted to present a podcast called Making Progress, hosted by Myra Renee. And I don't know if either of you know it, but it's very phenomenal. And I had the opportunity to go to its launch, and it was a whole team of Black folks and lots of Black women supporting the podcast. And I remember a major part of the conversation with a 6-person panel was just how Madisonians, Black Madisonians, have kind of holes and a feeling of loss around identity, and that there is just, you might go to a Chicago or a Baltimore or places that have a strong Black culture, and Madison, we have Black people here, but are we connected? Like, are we able to delve into our culture? And those are things that I know that I was certainly missing growing up. So the idea of a freedom school sounds incredibly powerful. I see big head nods. Well, before I let you go, Dr. Stovall and Angela, Can you tell me if the Black Madison Archive was created as a legacy of the Green Book, what do you hope the legacy of the archive itself is?
Honestly, the acknowledgement of the history of Black Madisonians, I think, is impactful just on its own, because I don't think there's truly a recognition of the rich Black history that is here. And that's coming from someone who's not from here, who I didn't even think there were Black people here when I first moved here. So the fact there not only are Black people, but there are Black firsts, Black significant historical things happening here that may never get the recognition, like you're saying, because we're not in bigger cities. So I love this project is helping to elevate those stories and preserve them.
And Dr. Stovall, how about you?
I actually had somebody reach out to me recently and state that they had just moved to Madison and they appreciated that they could use the map as a resource to know like what restaurants to check out, what places to go. And I had never even imagined that it could be used as a resource to just know where to go and where to be seen and feel affirmed. And so that's just like a little hint of a way that this type of work has made a difference that I didn't even think of, or we didn't even imagine when we designed this study. And to Angela's point, I really do think that putting our stories in the archive is so important. There's a legacy of erasing Black story of, we know so many Black people through bills of sale, through, foreclosure documents. And what does it mean to be able to tell their story when they're telling the story on their terms in whatever forms of expression feels good to them? Experience that we had recently, Micah, who's an undergraduate researcher, and I went to State Street because we didn't have a lot of houseless voices in our story. And it was really important for us to sit down on State Street and listen to the experiences and how people have really struggled to live in Madison, and the power of having people be able to really listen to those stories is really important, but also the ways that they're still finding ways to have joy and connection and community and kind of dispelling some of the narratives that you might have really just kind of brings us all closer together. And so I think having such a wide range of experiences captured forever in history is really important. A part of the reclamation of the historical archive is a really important part that I hope that this archive leaves behind.
Dr. Stovall, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Thank you so much for having me. This really was a pleasure to be able to tell a little bit more about the Stovall Collective.
Yes, and Angela, thank you so much.
Absolutely, Bianca, anytime.
That's Dr. Jessica Lee Stovall and Angela Fitzgerald Ward with Soulfolk Collective. Again, their collection is now live with the Wisconsin Historical Society. To hear more of the oral history, the Black Madison Archive Project, head to our show notes for a link. That's all for today, here on CityCast Madison. I'm your host, Bianca Martin. Don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Madison neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. And if you enjoyed today's show, why not go review and rate our podcast anywhere you listen, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps other folks find us. And go ahead and spread the word. Share this episode with someone who wants to celebrate the Black experience in Madison. All right, y'all, we'll be back tomorrow morning with more stories from around the city. Until then, take good care.